Cheating wife with 18-year-old neighbor. Penny Richards saw a gray hair among the strands of brown hair. She saw it when she started brushing her long hair. There it was in the mirror. The 43-year-old mother of three stopped and stared at the offending hair. Then she pulled it out, reached head in and yanked hard, pulling out several brown hairs. Then, so as not to miss a few others upon closer inspection, she gathered her hair into a ponytail. Even as she dressed, she kept looking in the mirror to see if there were any more gray hairs anywhere. Her size 3 breasts still hung proudly and beautifully from her body. Her waist, despite carrying 3 children, was a respectable 30 inches, although her belly was a little bumped up. And her ass, her friends were constantly telling her they wished they had an ass like hers. William Richards, her husband, often praised her ass too. William, not Bill or Will or even Billy or Willie. Still not satisfied that there were no more gray hairs in her long brown hair, but resigned to the fact that she wouldn't be able to find any this morning, Penny walked out of her bedroom. "Mom, I missed the stupid bus again," the younger Jenica announced as she slammed the front door. Normally, Penny gently chided her daughter for slacking, for oversleeping. But today, more than ever, Penny exploded in a fit of rage. Shocked by this behavior from her mother, Jenica ran to her room, wailing. "Damn it, Jenica, I'm sorry," Penny growled, frustrated with herself. Finally, after nearly 10 minutes of apologies and hugs, Jenica and Penny got into Penny's 6-year-old Toyota Camry and drove to Baylor Lake High School, where Jenica was a sophomore. They arrived just before the first bell rang, so Jenica wasn't late for school. After promising that next time would be better and kissing her mom on the cheek, Jenica left, engulfed by the crowd of school children. Penny drove to the grocery store, did her shopping for the week, and even smiled when the young man bagging her groceries couldn't seem to look above her breasts. She turned as she passed the stroller and sure enough, the young man was peering at her butt in her tight blue jeans. "Honey, I have a baby older than you," Penny wanted to say to the young man. "Actually, those are my jeans," Penny thought, and smiled as she pushed the stroller outside into the August humidity. Rachel, their oldest daughter, was living with Brad Bertrand, and the two were planning their wedding. Both Brad and Rachel were scheduled to graduate from the University of Louisiana at DeGard the following May, and get married the first weekend in June. William didn't like Rachel and Brad living together. He had old-fashioned values and views on these things. "Come on, William," Penny laughed at him. "How old were we when we got into this business?" "Getting into the business?" William asked. "Cooking bacon, pointing fingers, playing hide the salami." Penny teased her mired husband. "I prefer to think of it as lovemaking." William pursed his lips when he heard her laugh. "Actually, I still prefer to think of it as lovemaking," he said. "And I certainly don't like the thought of my little girl being engaged, as you call it." "Never mind, Daddy," Penny laughed. "But let me guess, if Clay wanted to sleep with Chelsea, that would be a different story, wouldn't it?" "If her mother and father are okay with it, that's fine," William said. Now, in the parking lot of the grocery store, Penny bent over to put the groceries away. As she did so, she tried to remember the last time she and William had tried to do business or make love. "It's been a while since we tried," she admitted. When she straightened up, Penny saw that an African-American man was watching her. He wasn't embarrassed at being caught staring at her. The man smiled at her and continued to stroll through the grocery store. "Pull up your pants, you idiot," Penny wanted to say to the swaggering man. "And get out of the middle of the aisle, huh? People should know the rules of the road, you know." When she got home, Harris, the young man who lived next door, had obviously skipped class that day. He gave his neighbor a sheepish smile. "Hello, Ms. Richards, can I help you?" he offered as she began pulling bags of groceries out of the trunk of the car. Harris had a bit of a crush on Jenica, but the latter didn't seem to care much for the handsome 18-year-old. William assumed that Harris wasn't as much in love with Jenica as he was with Penny. In fact, William had mentioned it more than once when the Phillipses came next door for a barbecue or a splash in the pool. That occasion when Penny dared to wear a bikini outdoors seemed to lend weight to William's claim. Harris couldn't take his eyes off Penny. With Harris's help, Penny managed to free the car pretty quickly. Harris then stayed behind and helped her clean it up. At first, Penny thought it must have been an accident, the constant pushing and touching while she worked. But when Harris's hand found her firm ass for the 4th time, Penny realized it was intentional. She smiled at the young man, smiled at his hot blush. Then she leaned over and kissed him. He almost dropped the mayonnaise jar when she pressed her lips to his. Fortunately, he set the jar on the counter. Harris was a somewhat skinny boy and didn't exercise at all. That said, he was a handsome young man with light blonde hair, warm brown eyes and a crooked smile. He was woefully inexperienced at kissing, and Penny had to put her hand on his skinny chest to slow him down. Then she kissed his neck. He giggled at the tickle. And then they made love. "I think we'd better put the rest of the groceries away," Penny said after they'd been like this for a few minutes. "Yes, ma'am," Harris agreed. That evening, William was both amused and aroused by Penny's efforts to hurry Clay and Jenica through dinner before heading to their rooms to do their homework. "Come on, Tigger," Penny said when she had succeeded in getting the children to disperse to their rooms. "Let's get busy." "Busy," William joked. "What, you want to do our taxes?" "No, I know, you want to clean the back room, don't you?" "Come on, silly," Penny laughed, pulling him behind her into their bedroom. In his 45 years, William was no longer as quick-witted as Harris. He also had a small beer belly and thin white legs. And as she tidied herself up before putting on a short nightgown, Penny saw 2 gray hairs among her dark brown strands. Any good, contented feelings she might have had at this disappeared. What better reason than a few gray hairs? The next morning, William leaned over and kissed her cheek. "Love you," he murmured before getting out of bed. He went to make breakfast for the whole family, made lunches for Clay and Jenica, and asked Jenica to hurry up or she would be late again. "I know I missed the stupid bus yesterday," Jenica agreed. "You did? And how did you determine the bus's intelligence or lack thereof?" William teased. "Come on, you know what I mean," Jenica giggled as she jumped out the door. "Do you want me to drive her?" Clay offered. "Want you to get to, what is it, Thursday?" "No, I want you to get to Western civilization," William said. Then, with another kiss on Penny's cheek, William left and Penny was left alone in their house. She made sure she was alone, she was naked. Penny walked to the kitchen, pulled a pair of scissors out of a drawer and returned to the bathroom. She sat down on the commode and cut off her thick hair. Then she took a warm washcloth and applied it to the stubble. Betsy Phillips must be a gullible mother. This was the second time Harris had skipped school. Penny almost groaned when, upon opening the door, she found a grinning boy on the porch. "Harris, honey, how come we did what we did yesterday?" "It was a mistake," Penny chided him gently. "It didn't seem like a mistake to me," the grinning boy replied. Penny saw that Mrs. O'Toole, the unfriendly woman from across the street, was frowning at them. She pulled Harris into the house. No sooner had she completely closed the door than Harris clumsily tried to kiss her. "Harris, honey, stop it, we need to talk," Penny tried softly. She did try. Penny very gently tried to calm the boy down. They talked while sitting on the couch. She held his hand, explaining that she was having an attack, probably hormonal. She explained that she was married, very happily married to William. She explained that he would meet and fall in love with someone closer to his age. Then they went to her bedroom and began to make love. Harris loved it. "So why did you decide to do this?" William asked Penny as they cuddled in bliss. "Saw a couple gray hairs there," Penny admitted. The next day, Friday, Harris did go to school. Penny was able to do the chores she'd neglected on Wednesday and Thursday. That evening, Jenica was going out with friends at Bola-Rama in Bender, Louisiana, and Clay had a date with Chelsea, so William and Penny were on their own. Penny noticed that Harris was among those going to Bola-Rama, and she felt a surge of resentment. She didn't know why it was happening, she just felt it. And she had rejected William's advances, she just wasn't in the mood. Harris waited 3 weeks before interrupting classes again. Once again he knocked on Penny's door. They didn't speak and went straight into the bedroom. Immediately afterwards William came in and said, "I forgot my laptop." Penny shrieked, which wasn't easy. "No," groaned Harris as he saw Mr. Richards in the doorway. "Here I am back to get him," William said sadly. "William, darling, it's not true." "It's not what it seems," cried Penny, wiping her face. "And I got it," William said as he picked up the laptop case. "No," Harris moaned. William was gone before Penny could jump out of bed and out into the hallway. She tried calling his cell phone. After a few rings, she got to his cheerful voicemail message. She called Bernie, the school secretary, and begged her to ask Mr. Richards to call her as soon as he arrived. The children at Andrew Jackson Elementary School must have been particularly rowdy that day. William never called. Bernie assured Mrs. Richards that she had given Mr. Richards a message. Penny prepared pork chops, mashed potatoes and lima beans, William's favorite dinner. "That's great, Mom," Clay said cheerfully. "Pork chops, wow, pork chops," agreed Jenica. Penny was shocked when William arrived at 5:20, his usual time. The man looked much older than his 45 years. He had been happy that morning, brown eyes glistening as he kissed her and grabbed her buttocks before leaving the house. Now, however, his skin had taken on an ashy hue, and his brown eyes looked flat and lifeless. "Not hungry," he mumbled and headed for his office. "William, honey, I'm so sorry," Penny said as she followed him into his office. "So what did you tell Jenica and Clay?" William asked tiredly. "About what?" Penny asked, her heart sinking at the sight of her husband. "About why we were getting divorced," William said gravely. "Divorce? We're not getting divorced." Penny forced herself not to shout those awful words. "Yes, ma'am, of course we are," William said, giving the first signs of life. He pulled himself up in his leather chair. "I'll be damned if I'm going to stay married to a woman who seduced an 18-year-old, he growled angrily. He rose to his feet. "The child, damn it, Penny, really a neighbor's kid, the kid we've been watching grow up, and you're making love to him," he yelled. "Please, please, please keep it down," Penny hissed, hoping, praying that Clay and Jenica hadn't heard her father's statement. "Why would they, Penny?" William shouted. "They'll figure it out sooner or later anyway, won't they? I mean, they'll realize it when I move out." "Move, William, you can't," Penny pleaded. "Then you can sleep with him, damn it, if you want to," William growled. He briskly brushed past her. "I'm leaving," he growled. Jenica and Clay stood looking at Penny with a lost, anguished expression on their faces. Penny felt a sudden wave of anger looking at her children. "What?" she shouted. "Hey, what?" 30 minutes later she slammed the oven door, pulled out the pork chops, put a chop each on 3 plates, poured beans and mashed potatoes on the plates, and slapped them on the table. "Dinner," she shouted at the top of her lungs. "I'm not hungry," Clay announced sullenly from the threshold of his room. "Come here and eat that damn food right now," Penny shouted. "I'm not in the mood for this nonsense, do you hear me?" The meal passed in silence. Both Clay and Jenica seemed to feel that if they didn't eat everything on their plates, they would light a powder keg, and they chewed and swallowed obediently. By the time William returned, it was nearly midnight. Penny pressed her lips together. He smelled of beer and cigarette smoke. Then she felt a surge of hope. Usually when he smelled like beer and cigarettes, it meant he was at the dead-end bar looking at the young girls who were taking off their clothes for tips. Penny hoped this was William Salvo, his eye for an eye. "So what did you eat at the dead end?" asked Penny as he untied the laces of his shoes. "Stuffed pork chops," William replied languidly. "Wow, what a coincidence," Penny tried to grin. Ooh, how about that?" William replied flatly. Saturday morning, Penny woke up to William quietly getting out of bed. The gray dawn could barely be seen through a gap in the heavy curtains. She figured he wanted to get an early start on the yard work, before the day's humidity made the labor too hard. Penny drifted into sleep. She awoke again when she heard the voices of Jenica and Clay playfully arguing. She slipped her feet into her slippers and went to the kitchen where Jenica was making scrambled eggs. The three of them watched in shock as William entered the house, carrying flattened boxes from the U-Haul store. "No," Jenica squealed and ran out of the room. Clay threw a glance at Penny and jumped out of the house. "God, William, please," Penny sobbed. William paused for a moment, then walked past Penny into the bedroom. Penny sat at the kitchen table and sobbed, putting her head in her hands. William walked through the kitchen to the garage, carrying a single box. When he returned, he put his hand on Penny's trembling shoulder for a moment. Then he returned to the bedroom. When he returned carrying the second box, Penny jumped up and blocked the garage doorway. "Please move over, Penny," William sighed. "No, hell no," Penny screamed. "Penny, move over," William said, his voice firm. "No," Penny sobbed. William set the box on the kitchen floor and shook Penny as he picked it up and slung it over his shoulder. He walked over to the sliding glass door and opened it. "William, put me down," shouted Penny as he stepped out into the backyard. Penny screamed in terror as her husband threw her into the pool. Her thin nightgown was see-through as she swam to the ladder and climbed out. One of her slippers flew off her foot and bobbed in the water. She kicked the other one off and walked to the sliding glass door. "You goddamn asshole," shouted Penny when she realized he'd locked the door. "William, open the door," she shouted, pounding on the door. After a few minutes, Jenica opened the door for her mother. "Where's your father?" Penny growled. But William, his clothes, books and office equipment were gone. The call to his cell phone went to a brisk voicemail, and Penny shrieked indignantly and hung up. It was Tuesday morning after a quiet, bitter weekend after a lonely Monday, when Richard Boudreau knocked on the door of the Richards' house. "Hello, I'm Richard Boudreau," said the smiling man. "Ma'am, what are these flowers? I really like that they're so striped." "Mint camellias," said Penny, looking at the flowers next to the front door. "Ma'am, you're Penny Richards, aren't you?" Richard asked. "Yes, yes," agreed Penny, still looking at the flowers. "And you've been served," Richard said, handing her a large manila envelope. "Have a good day." He snapped a picture of her with his digital camera. "I sent Bernie a picture of these flowers. I bet it won't be 10 minutes before she tells me we should have some." The man smiled as he opened the door of the Ford Taurus. He laughed a happy laugh. "Now that's a woman, I'll tell you," he said. "She knows that all she has to do is ask, and everything will be hers." During lunch, William pulled out his cell phone. Penny's tearful message had broken his heart, and he'd almost deleted it. But in the message she confessed her affair with Harris Phillips, and William saved her message for his lawyer. Trevor Williams, his divorce attorney, noted that if Penny or Harris won't admit to their affair, then Penny can deny that it took place. "This is a no-fault state, Mr. Williams," William said. "True, true," Trevor agreed. "But adultery gives us more leverage on alimony." "God, give her the goddamn house," William snapped. "At least until Jenica decides to go to college. What else does she want, huh?" "Sir, according to you, Mrs. Richards hasn't worked since Rachel was born. 22 years ago, right?" Trevor said. "It's high time she got back to work, don't you think?" William snapped at her. But now, listening to her whiny voice, hearing the anguish and fear in her voice, William felt neither a sense of triumph nor a sense of moral vindication. On Wednesday morning, Jenica quietly suggested that her mother go to the lawyer, go over the divorce petition, and make sure everything was fair. "There's nothing fair about divorce, Jenica," Penny snapped back. "Maybe not, but still, maybe you should see a lawyer," Jenica said quietly. "You're right, honey," Penny said heavily. Nicole Banks, an attorney from Couture and Associates, had come to work at 11 o'clock that morning. And as she brushed her long brown hair, Penny saw another offending hair with gray hairs. She pulled it out with force. Then she pulled out 2 more gray hairs she noticed on the left side of her head. Nicole Banks was an attractive young woman. The lawyer didn't look much older than Rachel, and Penny felt resentful when she spoke to the young attorney. "Your husband hasn't frozen the accounts, has he?" Nicole asked. "God, you don't think?" "William wouldn't do that. He knows I need that money," Penny stammered. With Penny's permission, Nicole checked the family account and 2 credit cards. No one had touched them. Nicole quickly filed a motion to suspend the payments to protect Penny from any attempts to freeze the accounts. She also filed a motion to order spousal counseling. Although Nicole's youthfulness still annoyed Penny, she thanked the young attorney. "Mrs. Richards, I sincerely hope this counseling will be beneficial," Nicole said, "but I want you to prepare yourself for the fact that it might not work, okay?" Despite Trevor Williams' objections, Judge Marie Robichaud still scheduled the counseling session, stating that both parties must attend at least 8 sessions. Dr. Sylvia Hooperstein was notorious for siding with the women in her consultations and determining that more sessions might be necessary, often recommending up to 21 sessions, the maximum most judges agreed to. Penny sat and cried and sobbed and apologized to William for the first 40 minutes of their first session. "Will, can I call you Will?" Sylvia asked. "Mr. Richards will be fine, thank you," William muttered. "Yeah, well, I don't see the need for such a formality," Sylvia grumbled. "Well, Dr. Hooperstein, when will you pay me?" "Then you can make that decision," William said. "Since I am the one who pays you, since it is my salary that pays the bills, I'm the one who makes that decision." "Fine," Sylvia growled. "Do you have anything to add to what Penny just said?" "No, not really," William said. She was making love to a neighbor, an 18-year-old boy. No amount of sorry and it didn't mean anything could fix that, couldn't spin it back. The second session was almost a mirror image of the first. In the third session, Sylvia decided to let William go first instead of letting Penny be first. He turned and looked into the face of an angry Penny. "But damn it, just for fun, let me ask you something, eh?" William said. "Let's say you left the house, went to the grocery store, then saw that you forgot your purse, came home, and let's say you caught me in bed with that little Teresa Prejean, huh?" Penny visibly flinched, her face tense. "Aha," William said. "It's not that easy, is it?" "But she's just a child," Penny snapped back. "She's 18, the same age as Harris, quite legally," William replied. He smirked. "And she's always going around poking me in the face with her huge breasts every chance she gets," William continued. So the next 43 minutes were taken up with Penny complaining about the neighbor's Lolita, who clearly had a thing for her husband. At the beginning of the 8th session, Sylvia mentioned the possibility of asking for more sessions. "If you do, I'll subpoena your records," William threatened. He rose to his feet. "I'm sure the court would like to see how many extensions you've requested that ended in divorce anyway." He said, "Where are you going?" "We still have 48 minutes, Sylvia snarled. "Is 48 more minutes of listening to her or you talking nonsense going to get Harris Phillips out of office? Will this make it so that my wife's adultery will never happen? Will 48 more minutes of this tedious chatter make her cheating disappear?" "No, then I'm done," William said and walked out of the office. Because he had not attended all 8 court-ordered sessions, Sylvia maliciously informed Judge Robichaux of William's dereliction of duty. Because William was a teacher, Judge Robichaux refused to issue a warrant for his arrest, but ordered him to hold one last session. William proved true to his word. A subpoena from Trevor Williams appeared demanding all records of court-ordered marital counseling for the previous 5 years. Penny walked out of the study. "Well, I guess that's it then," Sylvia sighed. "You can go now, William." "No, ma'am," William grinned. "You ordered me to come back for the last session." "Well, I'm here and we still have 37 minutes. So for 37 minutes, William sat and watched the doctor. At first she tried to maintain eye contact. After 3 minutes she went on to other things. Finally she growled. "Go, okay? Just walk away. You win, okay? Have a good day, Dr. Hooperstein," William said and left the office. Super One Foods hired Penny Richards to work evenings. William quickly realized that being a housewife was more than just sitting around and cleaning the house. Although Clay drove, he often depended on other people to feed him, clean his clothes, and fund his social life. Jenica couldn't drive, but she participated in several activities and constantly needed a chauffeur. So if there was any positive side to this divorce, it was that William became more involved in the lives of his 2 younger children. And finally, the marriage ended with a few scribbles on the legal papers. Penny would retain possession of the house until Jenica turned 21. Then the house would be sold and the proceeds divided 50-50. William's retirement accounts would also be divided 50-50 upon his retirement. No one had any victory. No one felt a sense of satisfaction, of moral superiority. One evening, while browsing through a middle-aged woman's groceries, Penny noticed a box of hair dye among the goods, chestnut brown. "I wish I'd thought of that," Penny said aloud. The end.